Bright QT. Every student matters.
Hello students, welcome to our next topic here, that is conditions of women in our society. Now students, before this we have understood the term that is gender division. Now if anyone asks you that what is the meaning of gender division, can you answer that? Definitely you can, because we talked about gender divisions, or when we are talking about gender division, it definitely means socially constructed roles that is related to male and female. So in our last topic we understood how this gender division exists in our society and what is its role in politics, right? So we understood the role of women in politics as well a bit. Here we are going to understand the conditions of women in our society, right? We saw that how our society has constructed or stereotyped roles for men and women, right? So let us try to understand the condition of women in our society here. So India is still a patriarchal society. Now, is this term new for you students? Patriarchal? No. Now, I'll tell you why. Because you have learned this term a lot of times. Might be you are not aware of this term, but you know the meaning. Because we have already discussed it in our last topic here. So, when we are talking about patriarchal, it means that a society or system in which men, they dominate or they hold the superior power, right? So patriarchal society or patriarchal nature, what does that mean? It means that men have the control in our society. They dominate in our society. Now taking the examples of our own families, what are we seeing? The main decision maker. Now, if I ask you, who is the main decision maker in your family? You will definitely say that if you are living in a joint family, grandparents and mainly grandfather is the decision maker. When we are talking about small families, we see that father is the decision maker of the family. So, all the major decisions that has to be taken in the family is done by the father. So that is why we say that India is still a patriarchal society, male-dominated society, right? Now, when we are talking about post-independence era, so in post-independence era, our then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, he passed a law that was the bill that was known as Hindu Code Bill. Now, when we are talking about Hindu Code Bill, we see that many issues were addressed in this bill. Now, what were these issues? Here were one of these issues that we are talking about is age of consent and marriage. Now, there were a lot of debates among social reformers who wanted to uplift the social status of women in our society. And therefore, many issues were raised by these social reformers. Age of consent and marriage, it definitely showed that what age is right for a woman to give consent or to marry, right? Apart from that, it upheld monogamy, right? Marrying one person, gave women right to divorce, treated dowry as Stri Dhan. What do you understand by this term that is Stri Dhan? It means women's property. So, the dowry that again in our society is still practiced today, now it was treated as women's property. In today's day, we also see that the property of fathers are now being given to women as well. Now, this was not the scenario of the ancient times, right students? So, somewhere we are progressing in our society. But still, when we talk about the term gender division, it is existing in our society till today. Now, women, they have faced disadvantage in many ways. Let us try to understand in what arenas women are facing difficulty in our society or disadvantages in our society. So, when we talk about the literacy rate, right? It means that a person, basically who is illiterate? A person who can read or write, right? So when we talk about this literacy rate, that who are the people who are literates in our society, we see that among women it is 65.46%. And when we are talking about men, it is 82.14%. Now, can you see the difference of this literacy rate between male and female? What are we seeing here? Who is the disadvantaged group here? Definitely the females, right? So, we see what is the reason behind it, students? The reason behind it is the school dropouts. Mainly, when we are talking about the rural families, the rural areas, people who are living in villages, we see that these people, they do not have a lot of money that they can send all their children to schools. So what are they choosing here? They choose that their sons, they should go to school. Why? Because they are going to be the breadwinners of their own family, right? So basically they are seen as an asset. But when they are talking about their female child, they say that these female children that we are talking about, they are going to some other family and they have to work inside the home. So they are not supposed to read or write a lot. Definitely the school dropouts, because of this, we see that is increasing among female in our society. And the primary reason is poverty among these poor people who prefer their sons to go to these schools, right? So this is one example of literacy rate. Here we see that smaller proportions of women, they go for higher studies. Again, the same scenario here. Girls drop out because poor parents, they prefer to spend resources on boys' education. Now, if anyone asks you why, you can say that they are treated as an asset for their family. If you look at the graph here, students, we see that in our country, only 48% of the females, they are studying up to 5th grade and they are found to be literate in India, right? Look at the proportion here, students, of our country. The green color here in this bar graph. Definitely, it is much less than all the other countries here that we are comparing to, be it Nepal, Pakistan or Bangladesh, our neighboring countries. Apart from this, proportion of women in highly paid jobs is still less. Yes, even when we are talking about the urban areas, when we are talking about the high profile jobs, we see that the proportion of women in these highly paid jobs is still less in our society compared to men. Again, who is the disadvantage here? So, the women in our society, they are not getting what they deserve in highly paid jobs. On an average, women, they work 1 hour more than an average man every day, right? So, average work hour, here what do we see? That women, they are working 1 hour more here. But again, are they being paid enough? No, students. So here what do we see? Who is facing these disadvantages in our society? The female section here. Now, their work is not highly paid and not valued. So these are some of the points that you have to keep in mind here when we are talking about this gender division here, right? In labor or anything, in any aspect that we are talking about. Apart from this, students, many acts have been passed. One of the famous acts was Equal Remuneration Act that was passed in the year 1976. Now, it provides equal wages should be paid to equal work. Now, is it happening in our society? Definitely not. When we are talking about the highly paid jobs here, we see that women are not paid as much as compared to the male part, right? However, in all fields, that is sports, cinema, factories, women are paid less. Now I gave an example of cinemas that male celebrity, they are paid more than the female celebrity. And these issues have been raised again and again by these female celebrities, right? They are fighting for their own rights and they are voicing their opinion over this, right? In many parts of India, parents, they still prefer a boy child. Definitely students. Even today we see that many parents in our country, they prefer a boy child. Not every parent we are talking about here, but some of them. Some population here, they are today preferring boy child rather than a girl child. So expectations from women is extremely high. Another important point here that you have to keep in mind, that in our society, a lot of expectations are there for women. Now what are they? To be a good daughter, to be a good daughter-in-law, to take care of each and everyone in the family, right? Because they are responsible of taking care for the household here. So definitely a lot of expectations are kept for female. Again, what are we seeing? When we talk about the sex ratio here, number of females per 1,000 male here, we see that as per 2011 census, the sex ratio is 940 females per 1,000 males. So the number here is 940 per 1,000. You see the difference here? Yes. Also, when we are comparing it with 2001 census, we see that in 2001, the female sex ratio here is 933. But in 2011, somewhat it has increased here. It came up to 940. In 1991, it was 927. So here we are seeing that it is increasing, right? 940 as per 2011 census. While talking about child sex ratio here, we see that it is 914. Okay? So, looking at these numbers, what are we seeing here? Definitely, the numbers are less for females. So, they are facing this disadvantage in the society. Right? In all aspects, we have understood it through examples here. Above all, talking about the literacy rate, talking about the preference for boy child, talking about the expectations that are now formed in our society for women. Above all those, we see that various kinds of harassment, exploitation and violence, they happen against women in our country. And it becomes unsafe for women to live in this society. Now, whenever you read any newspaper, whenever you're watching news and television, what do we see? We see a lot of cases that are being raised in our day-to-day life. And it is related to the safety of women in our society. Be it any rural area, be it the urban areas, be it the metropolitan cities, we see that the main question raised in our society is the safety for women. And these questions are raised for whom? These questions are raised for the political leaders who are supposed to take care of these issues. Correct? So therefore, we see that various kinds of harassment, exploitation in today's life is quite common against women. Domestic violence is also very common. And with respect to all this, many feminist movements have taken place in our society, fighting for the rights of women. Now, are you understanding the whole concept here, students? We are talking about the differences between male and female in the society that exists today. But fighting for this difference is a good thing in our democracy. Gender division is there and people, they can't totally exclude it from our society. So what are they doing? They are trying to fight for their own rights here. Right? Now coming to the exercise section, in multiple choice question, we have a question that says, in which of these countries the participation of women in politics is not very large. The options are Sweden, Norway, India, Finland. Now, what according to you is the correct answer here? Definitely, we are talking about our country, students, and we saw that the role of women in politics is minimal. So, the correct answer here is C, India. Second question is, Indian society is still considered as, the options are matriarchal society, patriarchal society, fraternal society, or none of these. Again, what is the term that you have heard right now? It was patriarchal society, which means male-dominated society. So, the correct answer here is B, right? Now, what is the meaning of patriarchal society? A society or system in which men hold the superior power or supreme power or dominate. Right? So basically, male dominated society is referred to as the patriarchal society.